Hello everyone and welcome to another Total War Warhammer online commentary. In this battle I'm going to be playing the Wood Elves led by Mel Gibson. And guys, we're going to be facing off against Norsca led by Wulfric the Wanderer. So let's jump right into this game, take a look at the army compositions, and we can go from there. So in the front line, I do have a combination of Treekin mixed in with the Eternal Guard. So the Treekin are pretty durable against Norsca. They have high armor by Wood Elf standards. They also do have really good melee defense, and they do have a physical ward save of 20%. So against Marauders and Berserkers and Marauder champions without the Great Weapons, these guys are going to last all day. Granted, they do fall victim against Skin Wolves, who do have anti-large, especially the Maws of Savagery, who have very good armor piercing values. You also need to watch out for Skin Wolf WEREKIN, who do have anti-large and AP as well. On top of that, I do have the Winterheart Guard. And these guys are one of those new regiments of renown that are pretty much a staple. They just, unbreakable frontline troops just carry so much value, especially when they have incredible melee defense like these guys. So definitely advise bringing those guys in most matchups. So we do have the Firebark Elders here. So these guys are very cool. They also do flame damage. So if they're fighting against Skin Wolves or, the Skin Wolf WEREKIN here in the back, they are going to get that extra boost, which is pretty neat. But nonetheless, I really like them as like a centerpiece of your army because they're just so incredibly durable. Even if they're fighting a unit that's, relatively speaking, a hard counter, like some anti-large armor piercing unit, with that high melee defense, these guys are going to last all day. More Eternal Guards and more Treekin over here, and then we do, of course, have the mighty Mel Gibson. So I just really enjoy using Mel Gibson. Granted, if you guys are looking to be really competitive with the Wood Elves against Norsca, don't bring him. Just get a Glady, with the Prey of Anathrama. It just brings you so much more value because Norsca is a really kind of overwhelming faction. They're going to be coming around your flanks and just trying to get your missiles or going after other high-value targets. Hence, the Prey of Anathrama, as well as the ability to avoid being punished by Wulfric and by Skin Wolf WEREKIN, is so much more valuable. Granted, he's quite a bit of fun, and if you do bring him, make sure to get the Cloak of Isha. So we have the Gibbs right there. Aside from that, we do have 3 Glade Guards with the Starfire Shafts. Fire being very good against Norsca. As you guys know, they have a lot of regenerating units that are vulnerable to fire. So we have those 3. We do have 2 groups of War Dancers with the Azurai Spears on the flanks. Anti-large, armor piercing, and very fast. So they have 48 move speed, and let's go ahead and see what the Skin Wolves have. So Skin Wolves have 65. So obviously Skin Wolves can outmaneuver them, but nonetheless, they're very quick and can sometimes catch them on a good angle. In the back, we do have the Loex Tricksters. So these guys are the Regiment of Renown, and they're also very good. They have relatively speaking, the same weapon strength. So that's 33 compared to 32. So it's not much different. I think both have Frenzy? No, these guys actually have Frenzy, where these ones don't. But they have a 61 melee defense, 49 melee attack, and they also do have this nice acceleration ability called the Loex Shroud. So guys, that's pretty much it from my army. I do also have Lore of Life with the Dwellers Below and Earthblood. If you can get on a group of like Skin Wolf WEREKIN or units like that, you can get some pretty good value. So for my opponent, this was the first thing I noticed. I was like, I'm in some trouble because he has a very overwhelming force. He has 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of very fast mobile units that I have to defend my back line against with only 3 units. So I have 3 Azurai Spears in the back against 4 of his kind of flanking pressuring units. So it's going to be pretty tough to deal with those for sure. But let's see how it goes. So he's got the Beast of Tashnar, anti-large Regiment of Renown. He does also have some Norscan Warhounds, and on the far side, he does have the Maws of Savagery, including the, with the Norscan Ice Wolves. So the Norscan Ice Wolves do have the Frostbite, whereas the Norscan Warhounds do not. So for the rest of his army, very cheap infantry line, very low quality. He does have the Marauders with Great Weapons, mixed in with a few champions, I suppose. But, the big problem is he has 2 Skin Wolf WEREKIN. So he has 1 here and 1 here. Very expensive, powerful units who do also have that physical resist. So if you guys haven't seen this, let me go ahead and zoom in here. They do have the Ruinous Flesh, which gives them 11% missile resist to them and nearby allies. And he does have Wulfric the Wanderer on a chariot. So this is definitely going to be very tough for Mel Gibson because he has a ton of mobile, anti-large, high DPS units that, do well against lightly armored units. So I definitely got to watch out. So that's pretty much it. He does have some Marauder Spears and some Javelins in the back line. Granted, the Javelins aren't going to be too much of a threat to any of my stuff because the Treekin have pretty good armor against the low AP of these guys. So without further ado, guys, let the games begin. So immediately my nightmare is coming to fruition. You can see he's coming in here with the Hounds and he's splitting them. So he's going to pressure here and probably go up and around here. So I can really only screen for one of these guys. It's going to be incredibly tough to stop both of them with all 3. So I had these Maws of Savagery on my flank, so I didn't want them to kill the Treekin for free, so I was like, oh, how do I split these units? But regardless, I ended up sending my Treekin and my Lore of Life caster to intercept the Maws of Savagery. But on this side, I get my Loex Tricksters here. I have one group defending in the back who are going to intercept these Beasts of Tashnar, no problem. But the other group is able to outmaneuver me with their 95 speed against my 48, so there's very little chance to catch these guys, which is very tough. Regardless, I'm getting some good fire on the Skin Wolves, and it is indeed fire damage, and you can see that these Azurai Spears, the War Dancers, are going to get in here, just massacre these Hounds. So they'll cut them to pieces in, a relatively quick manner. I decided to pop Earthblood, so I was like, I need to keep these guys alive. I need missiles to deal with the Skin Wolves and all that kind of stuff. So I'm able to kind of stabilize here and, break these guys and just punish them. And I also do fend off the Beast of Tashnar, but nonetheless, my missile line is very compromised. He has a lot of stuff back here, and this entire time that this is happening, I'm not firing. And also on that same note, I don't really have a lot of support from Mel Gibson because what I wanted to do was use the Glade Guards to really kind of focus down, his Skin Wolves and his WEREKIN and things like that. And then, from there, Mel Gibson could use the Azrai Spears to fend off these units. But you guys can see here, he's kind of surrounded here. So the Skin Wolf WEREKINs right here are kind of, that looks like just a straight up pimp slap. But he's coming in there, slapping Mel Gibson. He also has Wolfric and another Skin Wolf WEREKIN, all of whom just hit this guy incredibly hard. So you can see Orion is taking massive damage. He does have that Cloak of Isha, but nonetheless, it is looking very, very grim. He actually gets knocked down right there. That was pretty brutal. But we're doing some okay damage against Wolfric. I do pop the Dwellers below here just to kind of slow them so I could maybe potentially get away. But it seems to do some okay damage. I just wanted to, mainly experiment, but you can see it pins them down, negating their speed. And also my missile units in the back line, I was able to finally secure my back line and, start firing again. So I did some good damage there, and that was probably a very worthwhile situation. I pop an Earthblood here in the back. Hopefully trying to keep Mel Gibson alive, but he does move these Maws of Savagery. They're going to be going back here into my missile. So again, the Maws of Savagery are indeed getting into the chicken coop, which is very, very rough. So well played to my opponent with that micro. Very, very solid stuff. In the front line, it looks like my Treekin and my Eternal Guards were able to push back these Marauders with the great weapons. Here, the Marauder Champions were able to actually deal with my Firebark Elders, but that's because the Skin Wolves were mixed in. So Skin Wolves, like I mentioned before, do have anti-large, hence they're going to be able to wear these guys down. So very well played there. My Eternal Guards here on the far side are doing well. They're trading well with these great weapons, and again, they're not going to break. And over here, it would appear my Treekin are, going to hold off those champions for as long as I need them to. But unfortunately, I thought I was safe, but those Hounds keep coming back in, and there's just so much perpetual pressure. And this is a great kind of showcase of how you beat missile factions or factions like Empire, who are going to be getting a lot of value out of, missile units. You just have to overwhelm and zerg them. If he didn't get into the back line and I was able to fire freely, Wolfric would have taken a ton of damage, and it would have been really hard for him. But, in this circumstance in which he was able to, ultimately get into the chicken coop, he's doing very well for himself. So you can see Mel Gibson's trying to run away. He has 56 speed against the 65 of the WEREKIN, so he's not going to be able to get away. Granted, the Cloak of Isha has popped, so I'm just trying to juke him out as much as I can and pop those healing abilities, but Wolfric is also chasing him. Granted, Wolfric is pretty low himself. The balance of power is still somewhat even. It's probably slightly favoring my opponent, but let's take an overarching look at things. So the infantry battle isn't going terrible. You can see my Eternal Guards here holding, and a lot of his forces are getting surrounded and perhaps collapsing a little bit. In the back, my Eternal Guards, these Winterheart Guards, are finishing off some of these Skin Wolves. And, we've done a decent job securing in the back line, but the biggest issue is the fact that Orion just got ganked so hard. And these Skin Wolf WEREKIN, though I was able to do some decent damage, are just going to regenerate. So I don't really have enough stopping power to finish him off at this point. And he's just kind of running around, just hunting down my high-value targets. And I really like Wolfric on a Chariot. I think that's one of the better options. Granted, it does lower his overall weapon strength a little bit. He definitely is fast and mobile and can push through infantry. Just look at him. I wish the horses would actually run the units over. That would be so funny. But it actually just pushes taking this Spellsinger for a little bit of a ride. So, he actually ran her over there, so that's cool. Not a lot of damage done, but these Skin Wolf WEREKINs are just coming in. Definitely very angry, and it's going to be tough for her to survive. So I detached my Loex Strictures here. I popped the Loex Shroud, which does give them 24% speed. So they have anti-large and armor piercing, so I was like, okay, maybe I can finish these guys off or put a little bit of pressure. I was just saving up Winds of Magic for another Dwellers below, hoping to pin them down and surround them with a lot of anti-large units. But nonetheless, it's looking a little bit grim. He does have some Javelins in the back that are throwing at my Treekin, and even though it doesn't do the most damage against their armor, it's still going to add up. So most of my forces in the back are being chased down by Hounds and different things like that. The Firebark Elders here are putting up a pretty good fight against these Beasts of Tashnar, but they do have anti-large, so they should do an okay job at kind of chipping these guys down. But they have 36 melee attack. Wow, that's actually really high. And, granted 67 melee defenses there. They're able to kind of, push those guys back with the support of some Eternal Guards that are, giving it their last-ditch effort here. But in the front line, you can see most of my forces have been compromised. Wolfric the Wanderer is chasing down my caster. I do get a decent Dwellers below here, which I think is going to catch some of these guys. So, yes, it's going to catch some of these Marauder Champions, as well as some of these Skin Wolves. So it's doing some really good damage for sure. But nonetheless, these guys are just, they're too juiced right here. They're too jacked. They're in pretty good health, 2,000 and 1,300 HP respectively, and that's going to be all she wrote for the Wood Elves. So very well played to my opponent. It was a super fun game. And, a few critiques of my own play. Just, I don't think Orion was the right pick for, a really competitive matchup like that. I think you need the Glady and, just the Treekin. I don't know, as much as I like them and they seem good on paper, they're very durable against Marauders and they can hold all day. But I think maybe mixing in Eternal Guards with War Dancers might have been a little bit more cost effective. Bringing one less Glade Guard would have been good because against Zerg factions, it's very risky. It's kind of like, as the Dwarves, you don't want to bring too many missiles against Beastmen and factions like that because you're going to get overwhelmed. And, as soon as they're compromised, you just lose so much value on the battlefield. So perhaps cutting one Glade Guard, bringing some more Eternal Guards in the back line. So for every missile unit I have, I could, actively have one group defending each of them and one group floating around dealing with, other threats. I think that would be very nice. As far as my opponent's army goes, I mean, he had an excellent gooning squad. And I mean, this is a very, very much a hard counter to Mel Gibson. 2 anti-large, very fast units that can keep up with him. Wulfric the Wanderer, of course, with the Hunter of Champions. And, high DPS against slightly armored targets. There was just a lot going wrong for me in terms of the heroic matchup as well. But aside from that, I like the Marauder Champion pick. They seem to do pretty well for themselves. He had a little bit of AP from these great weapons right here. A single group of javelins is good as well. You don't want to overinvest in marauders, because if you overinvest in marauder javelins or hunters, of any kind, you're going to get focused down by the Glade Guard pretty efficiently. So I like that he brought just one, and again, also really like his play of bringing a ton of backline units. I mean, that's actually 5. So we had 5 really fast units that I only really had 3 units in the backline to defend against. So very well played to my opponent, Buckwit. Look forward to seeing it again on ladder. And hey, hopefully you guys enjoyed that Mel Gibson cast. Have an excellent night and take care.